Have you ever looked at a scientist winning a huge award and wondered what really separates them from everyone else who's just as smart? Is it just a lucky break, some kind of next-level genius, or is there something else going on? Well, let's get into it, because a really fascinating study gives us one of the clearest answers we've ever had.
You know, when we see that picture of a scientist accepting a prize, we're really just seeing the last scene of a very, very long movie. But what this new research does is it pulls back the curtain. It shows us the hidden story, all the years of specific choices and creative risks that set the stage for that one big moment. So here's the absolute kicker, the main takeaway. The prize doesn't create the innovator. The innovation is what predicts the prize. A major study found a clear, measurable pattern. About 5 years before a scientist ever gets that award, their work starts to look fundamentally different. It's not just a sudden burst of genius, it's a total shift in how they approach their work.
Okay, but that's a huge claim, right? How can you possibly prove that? To really know for sure, you've got to compare apples to apples. How do you find that unique fingerprint of a future winner when you're looking at them next to someone who, by every metric we have, is just as successful? Well, the way these researchers set up their study is just incredibly smart. So let's talk about how they did it. It all begins with creating a perfectly level playing field. Because if you want to find a real difference in creative style, you first have to get rid of every other possible difference in performance. And we're not talking about a small sample size here. The team looked at a massive global data set. We're talking over 2,400 science prizes and the entire careers of more than 23,000 scientists. The sheer scale of this is what makes the findings so powerful. And here is the truly ingenious part. For every single person who won a prize, they found what you could call scientific twins. These were other scientists in the exact same field, at the exact point in their careers, with statistically identical publication and citation records. I mean, just think about that. On paper, these people were completely indistinguishable from the future winners. By doing this, they basically took productivity and impact right out of the equation. The question wasn't who published more or who got cited more anymore. It became, okay, with the exact same track record, who was doing something fundamentally different with their science? So this brings us right to the heart of the discovery. Once they had these perfectly matched pairs of scientists, they could finally start to see those invisible patterns. And they measured these patterns using 3 different flavors of innovation. Okay. First up, we've got novelty. Now, this isn't about pulling an idea out of thin air. It's about being a brilliant matchmaker, taking 2 or more ideas from the scientific world that have never been connected before and weaving them together into something brand new. It's kind of like a chef creating a mind-blowing dish using ingredients everyone knows, but in a combination no one had ever thought of. Second on the list is convergence. This is all about how well a scientist can build a bridge between the past and the future. Are they just chasing the hot new thing, or are they connecting those deep foundational ideas with what's happening on the absolute cutting edge? High convergence work really shows you that someone has mastered their field, from its history all the way to where it's headed. And third, there's interdisciplinarity. This one is all about how wide you cast your intellectual net. How many different scientific fields are you pulling from? A paper that scores high here might be connecting dots between, say, physics, biology, and computer science, creating a solution that no single one of those fields could have come up with on its own.
And this is the aha moment of the whole study. When they plotted these 3 things over time for years and years, the future winners and their peers look identical. The lines are right on top of each other. But then, right around that 5-year mark before the prize, a gap starts to open up. The future prize winners start to pull ahead on all 3 innovation scores. That gap gets wider, it peaks the year they win, and get this, it never closes. They stay on a completely different innovative path for the rest of their careers.
So we know what they're doing differently, but that just leads to the next big question, right? Why? What's driving this change in their work? Well, the answer seems to be not just in what they're thinking, but in who they're working with. So the researchers looked at their collaboration networks and found these 3 big differences. Future prize winners tend to work on projects for shorter periods of time. Their co-authors are less likely to already be working with each other. And the topics they work on from one project to the next are way more varied. Basically, they're always moving, always mixing things up, and always exploring. You can really think of this as a choice between 2 different ways of working. On one side, you have the comfort zone. These are stable, long-term teams, everybody knows each other, you're focused on a narrow set of problems.
It's efficient, for sure, but it can also become an echo chamber. And then on the other side, you've got the innovation zone. This is all about fluid teams, fresh perspectives, and exploring all sorts of new territory. Prize winners, they choose to live in the innovation zone.
Now, this is a really cool point because it pushes back against a classic idea called the Matthew effect. You know, the old saying that the rich get richer. If that was the whole story, you would expect that innovation gap to get even bigger after they win the prize, right? Because fame brings more money and better opportunities. But that's not what the data shows. The gap just stays the same. The prize isn't the cause of their innovation, it's the recognition of it. So all this research is fascinating, but it brings us to the most important question of all. So what? What does this mean for the real world? What are the lessons here for all the leaders, funders, and researchers who are watching this right now? Well, if you're someone who manages a team or decides where funding goes, the message here is pretty powerful. First, start rewarding intellectual risk-taking, not just super narrow specialization. Second, create ways for people to move around and collaborate across different departments or even different companies. And third, start paying attention not just to how much your teams are producing, but how they're actually working together to innovate. And for all the scientists and researchers out there, this whole study offers some really clear, though maybe challenging advice. It's not about putting in more hours at the lab. It's about being strategic and working differently.
This idea is captured perfectly by this one phrase from the analysis. You have to have expertise. You have to deepen your roots. That's essential. But the real breakthroughs, the prize-winning ideas, they come from stretching your branches out into new areas, connecting with new people, and bringing those fresh ideas back to your core work. It's about that balance between depth and breadth.
So I want to leave you with this to think about. If we know that these breakthroughs are tied directly to how we collaborate and how diverse our ideas are, what's one change you could make in your team, in your company, or just in your own daily work to start building your own innovation zone?